Hey there, this is Matt, and happy Friday the 13th, everybody. I'm here to give you a review of Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes a Boat to Manhattan. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about my new podcast. I started a new podcast with a rotating panelist of hosts who are all going to talk about and deep dive into horror movies. It is called the Why We Horror Podcast. Right here on State of Flux, you'll be able to watch the visual version of this podcast. But if you want to listen to this podcast as originally intended, it'll be available on Spotify, and plans are to get it onto iTunes here as well. It's debuting later today, Friday the 13th, or if you're listening to this post Friday the 13th, it should be up and live. Look for it. I will create a playlist for it and maybe even link it down in the About Me section below. But moving on to Friday the 13th, Part 8, the last in the original run of Paramount Friday the 13th films. This film is kind of a dud, to say the least. I think the thing that really sinks it is the fact that it changes the lore in kind of dumb ways. It forces things to fit into the Jason storyline that we're kind of familiar with in dumb ways as well. By that, I mean the way he gets his mask. It's not his mask. His mask was destroyed at the end of 7, but they knew that they had to fit him into the hockey mask, and somebody just happens to have, on the first boat that he climbs aboard in this film, because it's all boat city, this movie, the man just happens to have a Jason mask that just happens to have the cleave from the axe that he received at the end of the 3rd movie, and it's just like, what? Why are we forcing this? It's contrived in the sense that somehow now Crystal Lake is just an offshoot of Manhattan and just a quick boat ride away, which is also just vehemently perplexing. But on top of that, this is a film made for and designed to get you to see what happens when Jason moves from rural, wherever the fuck Crystal Lake is, to suddenly him being in New York City, where he is going to lay waste to all the people around. The selling point of this film is New York itself, including if you watch the original trailer. The opening reel of this film, like the credits are rolling over all the different areas you're going to visit in New York City, which is the skyline and then a bunch of various backdrops, probably filmed in Canada to look like New York. And then what you're actually given in the film is very, very minute amount of New York. But the New York representation this movie has seems to distinctly hate and drag down New Yorkers. There's not any reverence for the city of New York, the island of Manhattan. None of that seems to be there. In fact, the first New Yorkers you meet, even in the opening credits, are people who are lighting up a spoon and getting ready to jack themselves up with heroin, which you see later in the film. You get to see the 2 drug-addled mofos drug your main female character in an attempt to gang-R them, or her, and Jason plays the hero of that scene, coming in and stopping both of them. And having your movie stop and have you root for him taking out people who are just as vile and disgusting, if not more so than he is, it's kind of fucked up. It's just a bad idea. But the negativity surrounding New York, the ugliness of New York, especially in those clear movie set backdrops that are filmed with all the graffiti and stuff like that. There's just a gritty ugliness to New York. It's not appealing in any stretch of the imagination. Now, this movie came out in 1989. around the same time as Ghostbusters 2 did. And Ghostbusters 2 was actually filmed in New York, and it was kind of obvious they did so. There's a romanticism to how Ghostbusters 2 films New York City and how this film does. And both of them are supernatural lean. Both of them end with like sewer bits or contain scenes within the sewers of New York, even including toxic waste sludge in both cases. Yet there is a reverence to one and a disgust in the other. And I don't know where they were coming at. Jason also has the ability to teleport in this one and also manifest as the ghost of himself as a child through various stages of looking like a normal child to looking like how we've been established as Jason looking since the very first movie when he is shown drowning, and then also when he pops up in the lake at the very end of the movie to kill or drag down said final girl. This is just like a kind of bonkers movie. It's also like really kind of stylish looking, like in terms of its lighting and stuff like that. It looks like just supremely 80s in a not particularly great way. And its use of Jason, I like Kane Hodder as Jason, but he doesn't seem to do much for this movie. He's a big, imposing powerhouse of a person, but you don't have the threat of that when he's also just able to appear and teleport through various scenes. Though this film does have one of the best kills of any Jason movie, where you have the boxer dude who's going at him for like literally 90 seconds or something like that. Uncut boxing match, and then Jason one punch kills him and the head flies off and lands in a dumpster. Cinema. That being said, that's one of the few highlights of this film. The final girl is played well but is pretty bland. The love interest character that she works with in the film is so dismissible that you forget he exists in it until you get to the end and you're like, oh, that's right. She did survive with somebody else. I've seen this movie a couple of times and I always forget that there are two of them that survived this picture. And then somehow there's a dog that you forget about actively while watching the movie. And you know that was kind of an afterthought of the filmmakers as well. It's terrible. This is just not a good movie. It's not fun. The kills are pretty lackluster. There's just so much bland going on for it to be something that's coming with big promise. If this had not been called Jason Takes Manhattan, and if it just had been part of the plot of the story as they're going to New York, but that's not the selling point of the feature, I don't think it would be as egregious. But the desire to get where we're going and spending over like an hour of the 90-minute runtime to even get where we're going, and then once we get there, spend most of the time on backdrops and sewers, where apparently at night they flush all of the toxic waste of New York City, like Toxic Avenger style, so that it can kill him, and then he just starts regurgitating blood. The Jason, like, it's laughable. There's nothing good about this. As far as the watchability, this one is less watchable than many of the films that came before it. So that's pretty unfortunate. This was the last of the original run of movies, and I kind of get why. Like, the creative energy of the film is completely gone. The retelling of Jason's origin in the opening scene is pretty weak sauce. I like seeing the continuity of him being still there, crushed from the bridge at the end of the previous movie. But that's kind of largely forgotten. He's brought back to life. For some reason, he's dripping with goo in this movie, as they would say in Ghostbusters 2. Yeah, he's like just goopy like the Xenomorph in the Alien franchise. and I don't know why. I guess the idea is that he's got kind of like algae on him that's just kind of coming off, but he spends most of the movie out of the water. You would think at some point this man would dry up, but no. He is dripping with goo, and I, man, I really don't have a lot of positive things to say about this movie. I think it's relatively mean-spirited. There's a lot of like use of drugs, and the condemnation of drugs and sex continues in this franchise. I think if anything, this, along with the previous two movies, which at the time were considered misfires, one of them still kind of is, though I like it, which is The New Blood, and Jason Lives, which at the time was not received well, but fans eventually came around and think there's a large group of the audiences out there that say that's the best Jason movie, and it's kind of hard not to acknowledge its qualities. After these three films in a row that all seem to be misfires, coming off of the fifth film, which was vehemently a misfire, it was time for this franchise to find new blood. And I'm excited to talk about Jason Goes to Hell next Friday the 13th, because I have kind of interesting thoughts on that one, both as a standalone horror movie, a sort of soft reboot of the franchise, and as a continuation of the lore established in Friday the 13th. And I think, if nothing else, that movie grants really interesting conversation. Which, if you like to hear conversation about horror films, I'm going to return one more time to promoting my new podcast, Why We Horror, which is exactly what we do. We take a movie and deep dive into it, dissecting the film for its analytical meanings and themes, while also providing backstory to the production of the film, history of its release, and just generally what me and my panelist of hosts thought about the film. Our first one, our launch movie, is The Cabin in the Woods, and I invite you to listen to that. Again, there should be a link maybe popping up in one of the corners of the screen here, and also at the very end of my video. Take a chance. I hope you enjoy and watch it. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and we'll come back at you next Friday the 13th with a review for Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday again. Thanks for watching. Peace.